want hulle vra gewoonlik dieselfde tipe vrae.
So daar is nie 'n change basically
In die moeiliker vrae ja, maar nie regtig in die. Daar's altyd soos dieselfde maklike vrae wat hulle vra altyd. So mense kan half sien, okay, as jy hierdie tipe equation kan solve, dan sal jy definitief sê maar 3 punte kry as jy hierdie. So ja, dit help daarom. Die ou vrae stel. Nee, plesier.
Môre is nie maar skryf begin te skryf
Wat in die dag?
Ja, so. Tot wanneer tot die week klas môre.
Ek gee tot die einde van die nee, dis nou maar net ons het nie ons matrieks mee nie, maar ons het nog al die ander kinders. So ek is besig tot 3 uur toe en dan tutor ek weer tot 4:30. In die middel van die dag, maar ander mense gee in my klas daai tyd. Ja, nee, het lyk daarom nie so erg nie. Ek weet Daisy het nou die dag gestofsug. Ek dink Vrydag, was dit Woensdag verlede week? Okay. Okay, vir jou ook hoor. What do assistant teachers do? I actually don't know, to be honest. We don't have any assistant teachers at our school, so I'm not sure what the role actually would be. I'm going to put on some music. Some nice chilled music before we start. Will this help IAB students as well? Yeah, I'm sure it will. We're going to just work through some questions in last year's November paper, but the content is pretty much the same. So yeah, I'm sure it will help. Okay, we're just going to give it 2 more minutes so that everyone can join. We'll start at 3:30 sharp. So another minute or so and then we'll get going. Afrikaans notes, unfortunately not, sorry, I only teach in English, so I don't have any Afrikaans resources, unfortunately, sorry about that. Oh, phone nearly fell. I'm going to use a different exam pad. Yeah, that's better. Okay, guys, I think we'll get started. Thank you everyone for joining. I hope that this will be worthwhile. We're only going to spend an hour on it. I thought I could do an hour and a half, but unfortunately I have some family stuff. Now, I haven't started yet. Hello, welcome everyone. I hope you can all hear me. Sorry about the awkward angle here. I do have my eye on my screen, so I'll just make sure that that I move the page as I'm writing. I don't have a proper setup, so I'm still working on it. I'll get to it. Okay, let's get going, guys. We're going to work on some questions from the November 2020 exam. We're definitely not going to get through the whole thing. It is a 3-hour paper, so yeah, it's impossible to get through the whole thing in an hour. But you know, even if you spend just an hour a day, or even half an hour a day, just practicing some past paper questions, it all adds up in the end. Okay, so let's get going. This is the November 2020 paper. You can just find it online. You can literally just Google for, you wrote this paper, nice. You can just Google grade 12 past papers and you'll get a whole bunch. I suggest working through the more recent ones first, and only if you have more time, work further back. The reason for that is because they change the mark allocation of things. If you were here for my finance live, you would have seen that last year they awarded only 4 marks for a question that in 2016 they awarded 6 marks for, so they are getting a bit stricter with their mark allocation. So I suggest you work through the more recent papers first. Okay, let's get going. If you have been following along on my series of things that will definitely be in your matric final exams, then you would have seen me mentioning these first 5 questions. Guys, they come up in every single past paper that I've looked at. So it is so important that you are able to do these first 5 types of questions. In this paper, it is adding up to the first 19 marks. So if you can get those first 19 marks, then you know you will actually be able to get a nice, good start to the paper. I see someone's asking if there's physics tomorrow. I am a maths teacher only. Unfortunately, I can't help with physics, but yeah, sorry about that. Okay, let's get going, guys. Solve for x. So we need to find the values of x. Now, guys, the way in which it's formulated always, it's even in the same order, they always ask a question where you can use factorizing first. So if we're looking at this question, it's actually a very easy form of factorizing. You can take out a common factor of x. So for 1.1.1, that is what we'll be doing. Let me just take this here. Okay, 1.1.1. So the question is x squared minus 6x equal to 0. All right, so we're going to take out a common factor of x. Now remember, when you're taking out a common factor of x, you need to divide each term by that common factor. And whatever is left when you've done that division, that is what goes into the brackets. So x squared divided by x is x, and negative 6x divided by x is negative 6. So that goes into your bracket, or brackets, I suppose. Now from this point, you now have a product of 2 factors. The product must equal 0. So then, would it be easier to write on a whiteboard and point the phone towards the board? It's all right, my pens aren't working at the moment. I didn't have time to go fetch new whiteboard pens, and I'm also rubbish at writing on a whiteboard. So I hope that you guys can see this clearly. Let me know if I must go a bit closer. I can also try and do that. Okay, so here a product of 2 factors is equal to 0. Now guys, that will happen if one of the things that you are multiplying together, one of the factors are equal to 0. So we're going to say if x is equal to 0, then you're going to have 0 times this bracket, which will give you 0. So x equal to 0. Or it's very important whenever you're solving for x in any type of question, you could just sub into the quadratic formula. Yes, of course, you could do that. I'll get to that now. Whenever you are solving for x in any type of question, guys, please always write or in between. They are quite iffy about whether you're writing or and. It's just safest. They'll never mark it wrong if you are writing the word or. Okay, they might mark it wrong if you even do a semicolon. So do or instead. So x equals 0 or the bracket equal to 0. You don't have to write x minus 6 equals 0. You can just go straight to the answer. So if you move that minus 6, it becomes positive 6. So x is equal to 6. Okay, now someone was asking here, couldn't you just sub into the quadratic formula? Yes, you can, absolutely. It's just that it's a bit quicker, in my opinion, if you can factorize, so just factorize quickly. It might save you some time, but you can absolutely sub it into the quadratic formula. We're going to practice that in the next step. Just be aware here that your A value is 1, your B value is -6, and your C value would be 0 if you were subbing it into the quadratic equation. You will get marks if you sub it in, but I'll show you now in 1.1.2, you have to show what you're substituting in. So let's do 1.1.2 quickly. And this is another thing, guys, if they are, yes, you will lose a mark for not showing factorization. So you do have to show this step, or you have to show what you're subbing into the quadratic formula. That is important. Now guys, for 1.1.2, they're saying solve for x here, and we can see that it's a trinomial, but they're saying correct to 2 decimal places. Now that is a hint that you have to use the quadratic formula for this. You're never going to have 2 brackets with decimal values in those brackets. So as soon as you see that, you need to know already you're going to have to use the quadratic formula. Now, the quadratic formula is on the formula sheet. I just want to write the question quickly. X squared plus 10x plus 8 equals 0. All right, so we know that A is 1, B is 10, and C is 8. So that's what we're going to sub into the quadratic formula. Now, in your paper, you get your formula sheet. I did a video quite a while ago where I labeled every single formula on the formula sheet, because as you guys see here, and you've probably practiced with it during this year, they are not telling you what these formulas are for, right? The formulas are just all given. You need to actually know which formula is which. Okay, so the quadratic formula is the very first one on the formula sheet. It is going to save you time if you know where to find which formulas on the formula sheet. So this is the quadratic formula. Guys, you don't have to write it down when you're using it because it is on the formula sheet. I am just going to write it down so that we can go over what you are substituting in. Let me just grab my ruler here. Sorry for using this protractor as a ruler. Okay, that is the quadratic formula. This is grade 12. Okay, that is the quadratic formula. So here, B is 10. So we're going to sub in 10 twice. A is 1, so we're going to sub in 1 there. And C is positive 8. Now, this is the step that you get marks for. You have to show what you are subbing in for each of those variables. This line is important. Guys, if you leave this line out, you are going to lose a mark. Like Tarin was saying, this is like losing the factorizing mark when you are using factorizing. If you're using the quadratic formula, you lose a mark if you don't show which values you're subbing in for which. Okay, so now you would obviously use your calculator, and yeah, the faster you are typing, the better. You can simplify some of these, so you don't have to type in 10 squared. You can type 100 immediately if you want, but I mean, it's up to you, it doesn't matter. So negative 10 plus the square root of 10 squared minus 4 times 1 times 8. You don't have to type that times 1, right? Because we know that times 1 is just going to keep it the same, but it doesn't matter. Over 2 times 1, again, you could just type in 2. It's up to you. So there we get our first value for x, negative 5 plus root 17. But guys, they said correct to 2 decimal places. So if you write this down, you're going to lose a mark. You have to actually press the surd to decimal button, and that is the value that you need to write down. So we're going to have to write down negative 0,876, negative 0,88. Right, because the third decimal is a 6, it's a number that's bigger than 5. We have to round up the second decimal. Okay, so the first answer is negative 0,88. So x equals negative 0,88. Or, again, please write or always. Then we do, now guys, just a hint, don't type the whole thing in again. Use your arrow button. Go move all the way to the plus, delete it. Put in a minus in its place, press equals, and there you get your second answer, negative 9,12. So x equals negative 9,12. Okay, so those are the two answers for x. I won't be doing the whole paper, no, we're just going to work until 4:30, but I will be going live again on Friday, so just keep an eye on my profile. Okay, so here you get 3 marks for this question. The first mark is for substituting into the quadratic formula, then you get a mark for that answer, and then you get a mark for that answer. Here I forgot to say this is a 2-mark question. You just get a mark for x equals 0 and a mark for x equals 6. I will only be doing grade 11 after the matrics are done writing, so also just keep an eye on my profile, but a lot of the stuff that I'm doing is kind of grade 11 work, so you can stick around and you can listen to what I'm doing. You will definitely learn from it. Yes, that is true. With the silver calculator you can do that, but you will lose this mark if you're not writing this down. Okay, so it's better to actually just do it the normal way, because you actually get a mark for writing this down or for factorizing. In this case, they didn't award a mark for factorizing, but if it was a trinomial that you had to factorize, they probably would have. Okay, 1.1.3. Now this is a quadratic inequality. 1 minus x, x plus 2 smaller than 0. Okay, so 1.1.3, 1 minus x, x plus 2 smaller than 0. Now, in the way that it's written here, it doesn't look like a quadratic inequality because we don't have any x squared at the moment. But if we were to actually multiply these two brackets out, it would give us a quadratic inequality. We would have an x squared, right? Because negative x times x, when you multiply these two together, you will get a negative x squared. Okay, I'm going to explain now in which way the arrow should be pointing. So this is saying that whatever we have on the left-hand side has to be smaller than 0, so it has to be negative. If something is smaller than 0, it is negative, right? So that is important. That's going to get us to the answer. Oh, we need to take that into account in order to get to the answer. Okay, so here I actually want to just write down some steps that you always need to follow when you are doing a quadratic inequality, because guys, they ask a quadratic inequality every single year. So if you're able to do this, you will definitely get marks for it. Okay, so I'm going to just write the steps down. The first step, just like with a quadratic equation, in the same way with a quadratic inequality, you need to get everything on the one side and 0 on the right hand side. Okay, so get everything on the left hand side and 0 on the right hand side. It's the same thing when we are solving a quadratic equation. We do the same thing, right? We make sure that we have all our terms, all our x's, all our numbers are on the left hand side, and it's always equal to 0. In this case, it's not equal to 0 necessarily, it's just smaller than 0 in this case. But remember, if that line is underneath the symbol, it is also equal to 0. Okay, so that's the first step. So luckily they've actually done the first step for us, because we have everything here and we have 0 on the right hand side. Now the second step would be to factorize whatever you have, because it will be a quadratic inequality. Whatever you have on the left will be quadratic, so you can actually then factorize it in whichever way. All right, so factorize the left hand side. The factorizing, if you look at past papers, it's never too complicated. It should be quite simple factorizing to do. Okay, factorize the left hand side. Guys, in this question, the left hand side is already factorized. They've already given us two brackets smaller than 0. All right, so it's actually already factorized. So step 1 is done and step 2 is done. Then step 3 would be to make the factors in whichever way you factorized. You're going to make the factors on the left hand side both equal to 0, and those will be your critical values. Okay, so make each factor equal to 0. But when you do that, you're not actually going to solve the inequality, because it's not saying equal to 0, right? But we'll get there. Make each factor equal to 0, and that will give you your critical value. So I'll show you now how I write that down. Just want to see if it's going to fit critical values. All right, then step 4 is you're going to use your CVs, your critical values, to set up a number line And this is actually a quicker method, but lots of people don't. Lots of teachers don't teach this for some reason. I'm not sure why, but it is a quicker method, the second one. So you're going to use your critical values to set up a number line or to draw a parabola. So I'll show you guys how to do each of those. Each of those two methods. And then number 5, you're going to use your number line or your parabola to answer the question, which I'll also obviously show you. Use the number line or parabola to answer the question. I see someone is asking here, will I be doing higher order questions? I'm just working through the paper from start. I'm just going to go question by question. Some of the questions in question 2 are quite difficult, and in question 3 we might get to those, so stick around. When am I going live for grade 11s? I'm not sure. Keep an eye on my profile. I'll let you know. Okay. So now guys, steps 1 and 2 are done. Step 3, we're going to make each factor equal to 0, and that will give us our critical values. Now, when you do that, please, 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 very important, write CVs. CVs, you have to state that you are now finding your critical values. Okay, if you don't do that, you might lose a mark. So please, very important, when you are making each of these brackets equal to 0, state that you are finding your critical values. You can do it like this. All right, you can write CVs. Abbreviated like that. Okay, so for our first bracket, if we make that equal to 0, we're going to have 1 minus x equal to 0. Right, just to get x on its own, we're going to just move that negative x, we can move to that side. So we're going to have 1 equal x. All right. Or, again, whenever you are finding x, you need to make sure that you write or in between. Please, guys, I promise you, you will lose marks if you don't. Okay. Next bracket is x plus 2 equal to 0. To get x on its own, we need to move the plus 2 to the other side. So x equals negative 2. All right. Those are now the two critical values. And guys, these are critical, literally, because we are going to show these values either on the number line or on the parabola. I'm going to do both so that you can see how the methods would differ. But I think that the parabola is quicker. Okay, so if you're doing the number line, instead, or can we use and? No, don't use and. You lose marks if you use and, because then you are saying that x is equal to 2 different values at the same time, which actually isn't possible. Okay, so you have to do or. Yes, this is pure maths. Okay, now guys, these two values are going to go on the number line. I'm doing the number line first. Okay, so negative 2, that's the smaller number, so that does have to go on the left. And then positive 1, that is the bigger number. So just like a number line, we put it in numerical order, basically. Okay. Now what we're going to do, we are wanting to find wherever, for which values of x will this whole expression be negative. So what we're now going to, okay, I'm moving it up. Also guys, just swipe to the left, hey, if you want to get rid of the comments, then you won't see the comments, because I think comments can be quite distracting. I think it's if you swipe to the left, then the screen is just clear. Okay. What we're going to do is we are now going to substitute x values, right, in each of these intervals. So here we're going to work with a value that's smaller than negative 2. So let's choose to work with x equals negative 3. That's a value that's smaller than negative 2, right? Any value. You can choose negative 5, negative 10. It's up to you. I'm just choosing negative 3. All right? Then we're going to choose a value in between negative 2 and 1. In between negative 2 and 1. So let's think of an easy value between negative 2 and 1. What about 0? Right? That value lies between negative 2 and 1. And then a value that is bigger than 1. Let's take 2. Where's Rumi? I see you either know me in real life or you know me from my other profile. Rumi is at home. She is fine. Thank you for asking. Okay, we're choosing a number that's bigger than 1, so let's take 2. Again, I'm just taking any value. You can choose whichever number you want, okay? Now what we're going to do is we're going to substitute each of these 3 values into this expression, into the left. And then we're going to write down, are we getting a positive value or a negative value? Because we want, in our answer, we want to know which values will make this whole thing negative. Okay, so let's take our calculators. Let's put that there. So I'm going to just take my brackets. I'm going to fill them in. I'm first going to start with -3. All right, so 1 minus -3. So I'm putting the -3 in the place of x. Okay, and I'm substituting it into this. Now I'm doing x plus 2. So -3 plus 2 because x is now -3, right? I'm getting a negative answer. It doesn't matter what the answer is. The important thing is that it's negative. So we put a minus in that spot. Next up, we're going to just use the calculator, the arrow buttons. And guys, don't retype the whole thing. Just delete the -3 and replace it with a 0. Okay, that will save you time. If you can also work these values out in your head, that's perfectly fine. You can do that anytime. All right, we're getting +2. So any value actually between -2 and 1, if you substitute it in here, will give you a positive answer. Now we're going to sub in a value that's bigger than 1. Remember we said we're going to try 2. So wherever I had 0, I'm now just going to replace it with a 2. And I am getting to -4 again. Again, a negative answer. Now we need to look at what were they asking. They were asking for, where is this expression negative? Negative in these 2 intervals. So let's circle those 2 parts because we now need to write that down. That's going to be our answer, guys. So now we need to think, which values lie here? We said values smaller than -2, hey, like -3, -4, -5, -10. So any value that is smaller than -2 will lie in this interval. So therefore, x has to be smaller than -2. All right, I will show you how to use the parabola, yes. Or, remember, when we're writing 2 things, when we're writing 2 values for x, we always put an or. All right, remember here I wrote negative because smaller than 0 means negative. Okay, so we're looking for negative parts on the number line. This part is negative, and this will always be values that are bigger than 1. So x bigger than, greater than 1. Okay, and that is our answer. That's what we leave our answer as. Now, if you want to use the parabola, guys, the important thing here is that we need to figure out, is this a positive parabola, an upwards facing parabola, or a negative parabola, a downwards facing parabola? Okay, I'll explain it now again when we do the parabola one. Don't we need to make a dot or circle and make a line above the number line? You don't have to. You can if you want to. All right, so if you wanted to do that, you would make an open dot because it's not including 0, and then you could show that it's going to that side, and an open dot and that it's going to that side. Okay, you could do that. I do have a YouTube channel. There are loads of videos on there. The link is in my bio. Okay, so now here, let's look at the parabola, guys, because it's much quicker than the number line. The number line works, but you have to spend so much time substituting values in. So, the parabola. Oh, sorry that this book is now at a bit of an angle. If we were to multiply these brackets out, right? I hope it's clear to all of you that if we say negative x times x, it's going to be negative x squared. Now, a parabola with an equation that starts with negative x squared, right, is downwards facing, is a negative parabola. So I'm just going to show you quickly. If we multiply these brackets out, we're going to say 1 times x is x. Then negative x times x is negative x squared. Then we do 1 times 2 is 2, positive 2, and then negative x times 2 is negative 2x. right? You don't have to do that. I'm just showing you guys quickly what the equation of this parabola would look like. Now, if we are simplifying this, right, because we have like terms there, we have an x and a minus 2x, this will be negative x squared, and then positive x minus 2x is negative x, and then plus 2 smaller than 0. Now, guys, this equation, if they asked you to draw this graph, this would be a parabola, but a downwards facing parabola, right? And to find the x-intercepts of this parabola, you would factorize it and you would make each bracket equal to 0, but that is what we did when we found our critical values. All right, so in the same way that we found our critical values, you would find the actual x-intercepts of this parabola. So what we're going to do, we figure out, is it an upwards facing parabola? Is the value in front of x squared positive, because then it will be upwards facing? Or is the value in front of x squared negative, because that is then downwards facing? And guys, then you just wing it. Hey, you have your line here. This line represents the x-axis. You just draw a downwards facing parabola. Don't even worry about the y-axis. They don't care. You don't get a mark for the y-axis. That's not what they're interested in. All right. You just draw your x-axis. So you can even put this here if you want, but you don't even have to. You can just draw a line. You draw your parabola. Remember, it's a downwards facing parabola because our a value here, the number in front of x squared, is negative. All right. Now, our critical values. The numbers that we put on the number line here, the -2 and the 1, those values are actually going to be the x-intercepts of the parabola. And now, guys, what was the question asking for? Negative. It's so easy to see that on a parabola because a parabola is negative when it is underneath the x-axis. So literally below the x-axis. This is where the parabola is negative. Okay, so you circle the negative parts. If they'd asked for positive, you would circle the part that is above the x-axis. Right? If you're thinking, guys, if you put a y-axis here somewhere, all right, y-axis, yes, it's going to be an or. If you put a y-axis in here, you would get negative y values at this part, or on this part, these two parts rather, of the parabola, because they're underneath, they're below the x-axis. All right, so what we do now, it might be a bit more difficult to write the final answers from this. But what you're going to do is, remember a parabola, guys, will never curl back in. All right, a parabola is going to keep going to the left and it's going to keep going to the right like that. So all x values on this part of the parabola are going to keep getting smaller and smaller. They're going to be smaller than -2. It's going to be -3, -4, -5. All right, so you are going to just write for that section all values of x that are smaller than -2, values that are to the left of -2. Or x, if we're looking at this part, greater than 1, right? Because it's to the right of 1. X greater than 1. There we go. I'm just seeing some questions here about this one. Let me just check quickly. Do you have to use a number line or parabola? Yes, you only need to use one of them. You can decide which one you want to use. I'm just showing both options. Can you send questions for me to help you with? Yes, send them to my Instagram DMs, please, and I'll respond there. How much would this question be worth? So this is only worth 3 marks, which is very little. The marks here would go for the diagram that you're using. Okay, so whether you're using the number line, you'll get a mark for that. If you're using a parabola, you'll get a mark for that. So that's 1 mark. And then you get a mark for that part of the answer and a mark for that part of the answer. Could you shade the part instead of drawing the circles? Absolutely. Okay. All right. I hope you guys are feeling good about inequalities now. I saw someone else asking a question about, do I have a general solution video on my YouTube? Let me just check. Which textbooks do your grade 11s use? So it is the Platinum Maths textbook. Do I have a video on general solutions? Yes, I have multiple videos on trig equations on my YouTube channel. What if you just did it algebraically? It should be fine. Yes, that's fine. I'm just a bit worried about the signs, but if you are able to do it algebraically, that should be fine. I don't think they will penalize you for that. Okay, let's move on. 1.1.4. All right, 1.1.4 is a third equation. They also always ask a surd equation. All right, so guys, the important thing with a surd equation is that you want to get the surd on its own and everything else on the other side. All right, get the surd on its own, or the term that has the surd, so this whole term on its own, equal to x minus 2. Okay, so that's already done for us. That's nice. I'm just going to write the question down. I also want to speed up a bit because I do want to get to the sequences and series questions. Okay, now with a surd equation, you are going to, like I said, get your surd on its own equal to everything else. Now, in order to cancel out the surd, what you're going to do is you are going to square both sides of the equation, right? Square both sides. My YouTube channel name is Miss Hanekom, but there is a link in my bio. If you click on the Instagram icon, there will be an option for YouTube as well, so you can go check there. Now guys, when we square a square root, the square root and the square basically cancel each other out. So this is just going to become x plus 18 equals, this is now x minus 2 squared, which is the same as x minus 2 times x minus 2, right? Now you can leave this step out if you know the shortcut for squaring a binomial, but I'm just going to do it properly. I'm going to FOIL these out to make sure that we don't leave out any terms, all right? So I'm going to leave the x plus 18 as it is. I'm just going to multiply this out quickly. X times x is x squared. X times negative 2 is negative 2x. Negative 2 times x again is negative 2x. And negative 2 times negative 2 is plus 4. All right, so now we see that we have multiple terms here. I'm going to just get everything on the one side. So I have x squared. This is minus 2x. Minus 2x is negative 4x. If I move this one over, it becomes another negative x. So that's negative 5x. And then I have a 4 here. If I move this plus 18 over, it becomes negative 18. So 4 minus 18 is negative 14. So we end up with x squared minus 5x minus 14 is equal to 0. Minus 4x plus 2 plus 4, hey? Okay, so that is now when you move everything to the one side equal to 0, which we always have to do, guys, when we are solving a quadratic equation. We see that there's an x squared there, so we have to do those steps. Okay, we have to guess, yes, 4. We have to get everything on the one side equal to 0. Now from here, you can decide, do you want to use the quadratic formula? Do you want to factorize? Guys, if you know how to factorize and you can do it easily, it saves a lot of time, all right? Because with the quadratic formula, you have to write the whole thing out. You have to type it into the calculator. So let's quickly go over that. 14, we're looking for factors of the constant term. Factors of 14, because there's a minus in front of the 14, the difference between those factors must give you negative 5. All right, so I'm just going to write it on the side here. It really does save a lot of time if you can actually just factorize instead of using the quadratic formula. So factors of 14, the difference between the factors. So basically difference between, that means that if you take one factor and you minus the other one from it, then it should equal the number in front of x, which is negative 5. All right, so factors of 14, let's think of the first ones that come to mind. I see someone already put the right answer here. Yes, correct. 7 and 2, right? Because 7 times 2 is 14. Now, can I subtract one from the other if we're looking at 7 and 2 to get me negative 5? If I'm going to take negative 7 plus 2 or positive 2 minus 7, that will give me negative 5, right? So I'm going to do x minus 7, x plus 2, equal to 0. Guys, if this scares you, I see some eyes there. I'm not sure what that means. Please use the quadratic formula if you want to. You'll get all the same marks. I'm just explaining quickly how to factorize, but it's really fine. Okay, so here, let's just check. Negative 7 times positive 2 is going to give you negative 14, right? And if you were to multiply out here, negative 7 times x is negative 7x. X times 2 is plus 2x. Negative 7 plus 2x is negative 5x. Okay, so this is perfect. This works out well. Now, we know that when we have two brackets equal to 0, we need to make them both equal to 0. So we're going to say x minus 7 equals 0. Or, again, we have or, please. X plus 2 equals 0. Then we just move that minus 7 over. It becomes positive 7. Here, we're going to move the plus 2 over. It's going to become negative 2. Guys, you don't have to show this step, right? You can leave that step out. You can go straight to the answer. I am going to save this to my, what's it called? To my phone, and then I'll post it to YouTube. Yes, I'll do that tomorrow. Do we need to show all the substitutions into the quadratic formula? Yes, you do. Okay, now guys, we found two answers for x here. Now, when you have a quadratic equation, you are supposed to find two answers for x, all right? But this didn't start out as a quadratic equation. If we look at the actual equation that we were given, it wasn't quadratic. It was just a square root. It was a surd equation, all right? So we have actually, by squaring both sides, we turned it into a quadratic equation. It was never actually a quadratic equation. So we got two answers, but guys, one of these answers might not work. Yes, you do need to do selection. That's what I'm going to, or getting to rather. So you have to actually check whether both of these answers work. All right, so why maths today? Because I'm a maths teacher. I can't teach English. And this is a free afternoon for me, so I thought, why not? Okay, let's check if 7 works. Okay, let's sub 7 into the left-hand side of the equation. The square root of x plus 18, 7 plus 18, what's that? 5. Let's check. If I put 7 into x on the other side, what's 7 minus 2? Also 5. Good. So x equals 7 works. All right, let's check if x equals negative 2 works. We're going to do the same thing. We're going to plug in negative 2 wherever we see x. So negative 2 plus 18, there we go, that's 4. Now guys, if I put negative 2 minus 2, that's negative 4, hey? It's supposed to be 4, not negative 4. So x equals negative 2 doesn't make the equation true. It doesn't make the left-hand side equal to the right-hand side. So you have to draw a line through it, and you have to say invalid. Right? If this was the question, yes, then negative 2 would work. But if, not if, if this was the question, then negative 2 would be a valid answer. But that wasn't the original question. All right, we turned it into a quadratic equation when it wasn't actually one in the beginning. All right, cool, guys. This is a, let me check, 5-mark question. So yeah, that's quite a lot of marks for that question. Let me quickly check what the marks were for. It was a mark for squaring both sides. So a method mark for that. Then a mark for getting to this line, the x squared minus 5x minus 14 equals 0. Not applicable. Yes, that should be fine. I'll do paper 2 closer to the time of paper 2 being written. Let me just check the other marks here. Then you get 1 mark for showing the factors or for substituting into the quadratic formula. You get a mark for both answers, so for getting x equals 7 or x equals negative 2, but then you get a 5th mark for showing that negative 2 doesn't work. How is it invalid? Because if you sub it into the original equation, it makes this side equal to 4 and that side equal to negative 4. So negative 2 doesn't actually work. You always have to check for a surd equation. You always have to check whether both answers are valid or not. Okay, 1.2, simultaneous equation. Surely it should be negative 4x. Yes, so the negative 4x is over there. And then I took that x over, and that was another minus x. So that turned into negative 5x. Okay, 1.2. Now we're solving simultaneously. So we have x plus y equals 3. Someone asked here what grade this is. All the work that I've done so far is essentially grade 11 work, but it is tested in matric. So all of these equations, you learn how to do them in grade 11, but you then also get tested on them in grade 12. All right, solve simultaneously. So we have to find the x value and the y value that will make both of these equations true at the same time. I'm so glad to see that there's so many people here. Thanks, guys. Welcome. I will do maths paper 2 for grade 11. Yes, I'll get there. Just focusing on the matrics for now. Yes, you do start this work in grade 9. My YouTube name, just go click on the Instagram thing in my bio. If you use brackets, yes, but look, the brackets I filled in. Okay, the bracket squared, that wasn't a part of the question. All right, we squared both sides. So yes, then it would be valid, but the original thing was just the square root of x plus 18 equals x minus 2. Those bracket squareds weren't there in the beginning. Okay, let me just take a sip of my coffee here. My face is all over my profile. You can go look at it there if you want to. Okay, guys, solve simultaneously. Now, when you solve simultaneously, I don't know if anyone here prefers elimination. I just use substitution, the method substitution always. So what you're going to do is you're going to look at your two equations and you're going to choose an x or a y. Which one is easiest to make the subject? So let's just take x, all right? You can choose to make y the subject. You'll get the same answer, no problem. Now, if I want to make x the subject here, I need to move the y over to the other side. So x equals 3, and this plus y, when you move it, becomes minus y. Okay, so x is 3 minus y. Now what we're going to do is we're going to put this in the other equation. Wherever we see x, we're going to now replace that with 3 minus y. That's why it's called substitution. All right, because we substitute all of the x's in the second equation with our expression that we got here that has y's. All right, so we're going to do 2. Instead of x squared, I'm going to write 3 minus y squared plus 4. Now, instead of x, I'm going to again write 3 minus y, but I'm just going to put that y in front. Okay, so just look at what I'm doing, and then you can see if you understand. So it's 4 times x times y. I'm just swapping the x and the y around. Oh, sorry, let me just move the page up. There we go. So I'm basically just putting the y in front of the x, and then the x is that bracket, okay? Minus y equals 15. Now you should see that we have an equation that has no x's anymore. We only have y's. So that's nice. Now we can solve for y. Okay, so 2. Again, I'm going to write this as 2 separate brackets. And then I'm going to FOIL them out. Here, I'm going to start multiplying in. So 4y times 3 is 12y. 4y times negative y is negative 4y squared minus y equals 15. Oh, sorry, that's a bit off screen there. There we go. Okay, now I need to still just square that bracket out. I'm going to FOIL this out. So I have 2. 3 times 3 is 9. If I multiply those two, I'm going to get negative 3y. If I multiply these two, I am again getting negative 3y plus y squared. And then let's check, do I have any like terms here that I can start simplifying so long? 12y minus y is 11y. So I'm just going to do that. You don't have to. You can simplify it all at the end if you want. And we have a minus 4y squared. And I'm going to bring this 15 over so long because I can see that. I'm going to have a quadratic equation. All right, so that's why I'm bringing the 15 over so long. You could also do that later. All right, let's multiply in here. 2 times 9 is 18. Then let's just quickly simplify this. I hope you all can see that negative 3y minus 3y is going to be negative 6y. And then you multiply by 2. So 2 times negative 6y is negative 12y. All right. Then 2 times y squared is plus 2y squared plus 11y. I'm just writing those terms that we had already. Minus 4y squared minus 15 equals 0. Okay. Now we need to simplify. So we need to add all the like terms together. So we have a 2y squared minus 4y squared. So that is negative 2y squared. Then we have, I'm looking for the y's, negative 12y plus 11y is negative y. And then 18 minus 15 is 3. Okay, now I don't like having a minus there in front, so I'm just going to divide through by negative 1 quickly. So basically what I'm doing is I'm changing all the signs. Let me just double check that this is correct because I don't want to work with the wrong thing. 2y squared plus y minus 3 equals 0. Yes. Okay, now what you can do here is, again, you should have just squared that binomial first. Yeah, it doesn't matter. You can square it first if you want. It's fine. So now what you do here is you're going to factorize. Okay, so I'm going to show you the brackets. You either factorize or you use the quadratic formula. Quadratic formula would be fine. I think in some of your cases you would prefer to use the quadratic formula because people don't like factorizing trinomials that have a 2 in front of the y squared. But if you were to factorize it, you would get 2y plus 3 and y minus 1 equals 0. Or you can use the quadratic formula. Guys, the quadratic formula you can always use. Okay, so please don't stress about sorry, I'm laughing at that little skull because you didn't like the factorizing earlier as well. Don't worry about the factorizing if you don't like it. Just use the quadratic formula and you'll get your 2y values immediately. So from this first bracket, if you were to make this equal to 0, I'm just speeding up a little bit. If you were to make this equal to 0, you would get negative 3 over 2. But if you sub it into the quadratic formula, you would get that straight away. All right. Or if we make this bracket equal to 0, we would get y equals 1. Okay, so we have 2 answers for y, which is fine, okay, because y, we have a y squared, so we're supposed to get 2 answers for y. But guys, remember they said solve simultaneously, so we have to solve for x and for y, all right? So once we've solved for y, we are now going to go back to our first equation that we created here. When we made x the subject, we've basically created a formula to get x, all right? So now, in order to get x, we're just going to say 3 minus this y value, or 3 minus that y value. All right, and then we'll get our 2x values. Oh, I see people asking for functions. I don't think we're going to get to functions today, but I'm speeding through. All right, so therefore x is equal to 3 minus the first y value, which was negative 3 over 2. You can do that in your head, or you can, excuse me, you can type it into the calculator. That will give you 9 over 2. Or, are we noticing that I'm putting or every time I get more than one answer? X is 3 minus 1, which is 2. All right, so there we go. We've solved them simultaneously. Okay, guys, I'm just quickly looking ahead. I'm looking ahead. I am looking at, should I skip the number patterns questions and quickly do a functions one? The first functions one, because question 4, we can do that. I only have 12 minutes left, so we can do this one quickly. Question 4 in 12 minutes. Yes, skip it. Okay, one person is saying I'm going to skip it. I'm going to do it. Yes, okay. Oh, okay, thanks. I'm doing it. Okay, I will do more lives, guys. So then someone saying no, sorry, I will come back to it. I promise, at a different time. Okay, question 4. So we've done question 1. We haven't done the last question of question 1, which is a bit of a problem-solving question. But I'll tell you guys what. I will record a YouTube video on that question, or even a TikTok video. I'll record a TikTok video on that tomorrow, and I'll post it. Okay. Hyperbola is too easy, but it's nice marks to get. Hey, so 4.1. They're giving you this equation. H of x is equal to negative 3 over x minus 1 plus, oh, that's not written nicely, sorry about that, I'm rushing, negative 3 over x minus 1 plus 2. Question 4.1.1. Now guys, hopefully if you're looking at this equation, you can tell immediately that it is a hyperbola, right? I have nice hands, thank you. I hope that you can tell immediately that it's a hyperbola. Remember, a hyperbola always has an x in the denominator of the fraction. Okay, that's how you recognize it. 4.1.1, they're asking you to write down the equations of the asymptotes of h. Now guys, these are easy marks, 2 marks that you can always get. Remember that the standard form of a hyperbola is this. Some of your teachers might have done x plus p. I prefer x minus p, all right, but it doesn't matter. It's up to you. If you've worked with x plus p, then carry on with that. I always write it like this. Now, guys, if it's like this, you have two, what's it called? Two asymptotes, sorry. I blanked now because I'm rushing. Two asymptotes. The asymptotes are literally x equals p and y equals q. All right, x equals p and y equals q. So your two asymptotes are, what is my p value here? If I have x minus 1, x minus p, p is 1, right? That is my first or my one asymptote, x equals 1. And guys, it's easy to remember that that is the x asymptote because it's next to the x. All right, next to the x, so x equals 1. The other one is the y asymptote. That's the one that's not in the equation. So y equals 2. So yes, 1 and 2. But guys, you can't just write 1 and 2. You have to say x equals 1, y equals 2. How easy is that? 2 marks in the bag. There we go. Great. Okay. 4.1.2. Determine the equation of the axis of symmetry of H that has a negative gradient. Let me just actually show it to you. Determine the equation of the axis of symmetry of H that has a negative gradient. Now, guys, hyperbolas have two axes of symmetry, all right? The one has a positive gradient and the other one has a negative gradient. Now, I'm going to teach you the standard forms of those as well. They're just asking for one of them, but let's discuss both of them. So, your two axes of symmetry for a hyperbola, and they also tend to ask this, guys. They usually ask the equations of the asymptotes and then they ask one of the two axes of symmetry. So it's great if you know how to do those. All right, now it's always like this: y equals x minus p, you don't really need the brackets for this, plus q, and the other one is y equals negative, now in this case you do need the brackets, x minus p plus q. Please note that x minus p is exactly what you have in the denominator of the equation, and plus q is exactly what you have written after the fraction in the written after the fraction in the equation. This is the November 2020 paper, last year's one. So if they're asking you for the axis of symmetry with a positive gradient, it's this one with a positive x without the minus in front. All right. If they're asking you for the one with the negative gradient, it's this one, the one with a minus in front. Okay, so I'm just going to write both of them down. Let's practice finding both of them, but they are actually asking just for one of them. So if they were asking for the one with a positive gradient, you would have this one. You would say y is equal to literally exactly what you have in your denominator. You don't change it. X minus 1 and then plus 2. But now you can't leave it like that, right? Because what's negative 1 plus 2? You have to simplify that. So y equals x minus 1 plus 2 is positive 1. So that is the axis of symmetry that has a positive gradient. All right, so if they're asking for that one, if they ask for the equation of the axis of symmetry that has a positive gradient, you would write this one down. The one with a positive, with a plus in front of the bracket. But now in this question, they've actually asked for the one with a negative gradient. Okay, so this isn't actually the answer to the question. I'm just showing you how you would find that one. The one with the negative gradient is this one. So again, you're going to use exactly what you have in your denominator and exactly what you have there, but you must just put a minus in front of that bracket. Okay, so I'll show you. You say y equals negative your exact denominator and then plus 2. You don't change that sign. Okay, it's just a minus in front of the bracket. But now you need to multiply that minus in, right? A negative times x is negative x. And negative times negative 1 is plus 1 and then plus 2. So that equation is y equals negative x plus, oh, sorry, I put a 2 there. I was thinking ahead. Sorry, that's supposed to be a 2, right? My apologies. Okay, plus 1 plus 2 is plus 3. Okay, so this is the one that they're asking for, guys. They say determine the equation of the axis of symmetry of H that has a negative gradient. It's only 2 marks, but guys, that's 2 marks in the bag. Okay, so negative x plus 3. That's actually what they would give you marks for. This is like watching paint dry. That's a bit rude. But okay, sorry. I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing. Okay, 4.1.3. Sketch the graph of h, showing the asymptotes and the intercepts with the axes. Now guys, a hyperbola has quite a lot of work to draw, but it's only 4 marks. So I'm going to show you exactly what they give marks for. All right. I'm going to show you what they give marks for. Only 4 marks. Don't waste your time. Yes, exactly. Rather take the 2 marks than lose them. Perfect. Okay, so I'm going to show you exactly what you get marks for. This is pure maths. It's the November 2020 paper. Okay, so when you are drawing a hyperbola, you obviously need to draw these asymptotes. You're going to get 1 mark for drawing both of them. Okay, which also in the past, they used to give a mark for each of them. They're getting stingy with their marks lately. All right, so you'll only get 1 mark for both of these. Then you're going to get a mark for the y-intercept. Then you're going to get a mark for the x-intercept. And then you're going to get your 4th mark for the shape. Okay, now guys, the shape of the graph, you are going to look at the sign in front of the number in your numerator. If that is a positive, right, or negative, that is going to tell you which quadrant the graph is going to be in. So we call this the A value, right? It's actually there. Let me show you that. The A value. If A is negative, stop asking why. If A is negative, then you need to know that the graph is going to be in specific quadrants. But now, because we have, because we have asymptotes, the quadrants are shifting. I'll show you now when I'm drawing it. But if A is positive, let me write it here at the top. If A is positive, then your quadrants or your graph will be in quadrants 1 and 3. Okay, but now, because when you're drawing in your asymptotes, right, the quadrants are almost shifting with the asymptotes. Then if A is negative, let me do it underneath, the graph is going to be in the other quadrants. And guys, that is what your 4th mark is going for. All right, the 4th mark is going for, or is awarded for, whether you have drawn the graph actually in the correct quadrants. Okay, so 4.1.3, what do we need? We need to draw our asymptotes, okay? So we must remember that. That's going to give us 1 mark. Guys, you don't draw the axis of symmetry in unless they state that you have to, okay? Please don't waste your time with that. They almost never ask you to do that. They ask you to calculate it, but then you normally don't have to draw it in. Then, to find your y-intercept. Guys, for any graph, to find the y-intercept, you make x equal to 0 in the equation. So y is equal to, oh, don't worry, there are difficult questions in this paper. We just haven't really gotten to them yet. All right, there were a few really tricky ones. Now, obviously, this is an easy one, right? You don't really have to use your calculator for this. If you want to, you're welcome to. But negative 3 over 0 minus 1 is negative 1, right? So negative 3 divided by negative 1 is 3 plus 2 is 5. So that means that the y-intercept is the point 0, 5. Okay, now guys, unfortunately, just for calculating it, you don't get a mark. You have to actually draw it on the graph. Okay, you obviously have to calculate it in order to be able to draw it, but yeah, they don't give a mark for the working. Then to find your x-intercept, it's a bit more work to find the x-intercept, but you will also only get 1 mark for actually drawing it, which I don't think is really nice, but yeah, that's how it goes. So make y equal to 0. So again, in your equation, you now need to make y equal to 0. So we're going to make this whole thing equal to 0. So we're going to do 0 equal to negative 3 over x minus 1 plus 2. Okay, so I've made y equal to 0. Now we're going to move the 2 to that side. When you move a plus 2, it becomes negative 2. So you get negative 2 is equal to negative 3 over x minus 1. All right. Then in order to get this x minus 1 out from underneath the fraction, we don't want it in the denominator, we're going to multiply it out on the other side. Right. So I'm going to have negative 2 times x minus 1. So I'm multiplying it out like that. equal to negative 3. Now, guys, it's up to you. You can actually multiply that negative 2 into the bracket if you want, but then you're going to have to divide by it again. So let me show you a quicker way of doing it. Just move the negative 2 to that side now, right? Because here I'm multiplying this whole bracket by negative 2. The opposite of multiplying by negative 2 is dividing by 2. The whole page, okay, I'll show it to you at the end. All right, so negative 3, you divide by negative 2, and you'll be left with this bracket, right? What's negative 3 divided by negative 2? That's positive 3 over 2. Okay, this is actually quicker than multiplying the negative 2 in and then later again having to divide by negative 2. All right, now to get x on its own, I'm just going to move this minus 1, and it's going to become plus 1. So x is equal to, remember that 3 over 2 is 1.5, right? Plus 1 is 2.5. Okay, so 2.5 you can write as 5 over 2. You can also write it as 2.5 if that makes it a bit easier to plot. All right, so therefore the x-intercept is the point 2.5, or you can leave it as 5 over 2, that's fine, 0. Now guys, this is what I was saying by, it's not really nice, because for all of this work, you only get 1 mark. Okay, so I think when you are practicing past hyperbola questions, get used to actually solving these quickly, because it's only 1 mark for all of this. All right. Now, what else do we need? That's it. Okay. I always teach my kids that you actually need to get some more points in order to write or in order to draw an accurate hyperbola. And in the past, they used to award a mark for more points. But now they don't anymore. So guys, don't waste time in calculating more points. Get your x-intercept, your y-intercept, your 2 asymptotes, and make sure that the shape is fine. Okay, so let's draw this. Let me quickly see. We need to go to 5 and we need to go to 2.5. All right. I'm just going to do it on a new page. Sorry, someone asked to take a screenshot of the page. I'll put it up again at the end. I just want to draw this graph quickly. Okay, now guys, normally in matric finals, they do give you, what's it called? They do give you, why can't I think of that word now? Like a grid, all right? A diagram sheet, sorry, that's what I'm trying to say. They will give you a diagram sheet, so don't worry about that. Let's quickly draw this. I am going to go to, let's see, 1, 2, let's do like that, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then I'll do it symmetrically. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 as well. You shivered when I said matric finals. When can I do tree graphs? I'm going to do paper 2 lives once paper 1 is over. Okay. Let me see. Let me do 5, and then I'll do another 5 like that. Let me just mark them off. Okay, we are going a little bit over time, but I do want to finish this graph. So we'll finish the graph. Yx, and then I'll answer some of your questions. All right, so the first thing that I always fill in, because it's going to help to actually draw the graph, is I always fill in my asymptotes first. Now we had to do x equals 1. That was the 1 asymptote. All right, so go to the x-axis at 1, and let me just line it up here. You draw your dotted line. Okay, we usually use a dotted line for asymptotes. You guys arguing in the comment section here. All right. I can't see this line. Okay, it goes to there. Guys, you have to label your asymptote. You will not get a mark if your asymptote is not labeled. Okay, so x equals 1, label it. That's 1 mark. There we go. Even if that's all you do, guys, you get a mark. All right, so if you don't know how to get your points, draw your Cartesian plane, put in your asymptotes, you get 2 marks. Well, it's actually 1 mark. Sorry, I forgot. My apologies. I was going on the old mark allocation. It's 1 mark for both asymptotes. Okay, the other one was y equals 2. So we go to the y-axis at 2 over there. So I'm just going to say it's on the second line. And we do another dotted line for that one. there we go, and we label it y equals 2. All right, and we do that. The same pen. Yeah, these are Pilot friction pens. There we go. They're a bit expensive, but it's nice because you can erase them and you can buy the refills as well. All right, so we have 1 mark, guys. Let's do the rest. Let's put our y-intercept in. The y-intercept that we calculated was 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then the x-intercept that we calculated was 2.5. So here we have 1, 2.5. There we go. And now, guys, we're going to draw our graph. Okay, obviously we do need to label those points. I'm just going to draw the actual graph before I do that. Now I'm just winging it, hey, so this might not be the best looking graph, okay, but there we go. I do make YouTube videos. Yes, you can click the link in my bio and it will be an option to go to. So there we have the 1 point. Guys, that is a mark for that point. This point, okay, now this is going to be a bit more difficult to draw because the point is so high up. I am just quickly, sorry about this. I always rotate my page in order to draw my graph. Okay, that's not the best looking part of a parabola, but you get the idea. Now, guys, when you're drawing, sorry, I keep saying parabola, it's a hyperbola. Now, guys, when you're drawing your graph, you do need to make sure that it's tending towards, it's kind of getting closer towards the asymptotes. Are erasable pens allowed in finals? I think so, yeah. I really think they are. I've never read anything to the contrary. So now our y-intercept was 0, 5. That's our 3rd mark. Guys, the 4th mark is for the shape. Now the shape is saying that it's here and it's here. Some kids got beaten because they were using them. Well, that's definitely not allowed. Okay, so maybe have them, but then just have a backup in case you get told that you're not allowed to use it. I haven't heard. They aren't allowed to prevent cheating. Okay, I'll read up on it a bit. I'll see if I can find out, and I'll make a post about it on TikTok once I found out. Okay, guys, that is it for today. Unfortunately, I have to go. If the signs were switched for the asymptotes, would it change where? Let me just check where it would be on the graph if the signs were changed for the asymptotes. Yeah, so if it was x equals -1, it would be over there. And if it was y equals -2, it would be over there. Okay, I'm just quickly running through some of these comments so that I can reply, but it goes very far back. I might miss some things. Let me just go. My handwriting, thank you. Let's see. Paper 2, I'm going to get to paper 2, definitely. Do I have a boyfriend? Terrible. It's for me to know and for you to find out, sir. Okay, not even get started on physics. Yeah, I'm not going to comment on that because I didn't enjoy physics myself when I was at school. YouTube. Yes, guys, I don't make videos. So the videos on my YouTube are recordings of my lessons in class. So I've watched a few of them and sometimes it sounds like I'm shouting, but that's just because I'm projecting my voice across the whole classroom, obviously, and I'm sitting right in front of the microphone. So maybe just turn the volume down a bit. But yes, I record all of my lessons when I'm teaching them and I post them to my YouTube. I haven't updated my YouTube in a while. I wanted to do so earlier today, but then we had load shedding. So I am going to, oh, flip, that is true, hey? Heat does remove this ink. Yes, that's a good point. So guys, maybe it's not a good idea to work with this because the ink might, the ink might actually go away. Okay, so please, sorry, I didn't even think of that. Thank you, user with lots of numbers. That's a very good point. Okay, so rather don't use this. Let's see. Show the other answers. Oh, yes. Okay, let me just, okay, I'm just going to take my phone out of this holder so that I can. Okay, sorry, let me just move this away. All right, someone said they want to take a screenshot. You can look at that now. Oh, no, this wasn't what you wanted. Hey, you wanted the hyperbola. Sorry. There we go. Thanks, ma'am. You're welcome. Thank you, guys. This was November 2020. How to calculate an extra point. You could just choose any x value. So you can choose like x equals 4 or x equals -3 or whatever. Just choose any x value and substitute it into the equation. Yes, I do only do maths. You are very welcome, guys. You're welcome. I'm going to do trig. Yes, I will get to that. When's the next live? I'm thinking of Friday afternoon, but I'll post about it. I'll put something on my profile. Calculus, yes, we'll get to that. More functions, definitely. The first page. Okay, the first page coming up. That was the first page. Yeah, we'll do calculus next time, guys. Okay, screenshot of the first page. It is there. That's the first page, guys. User with lots of numbers, yeah. You're welcome, guys. I'm just going through probability. Yes, I'll get to that as well. Oh, there are lots of messages. Can I also take one of the graph? Yes. Where did I put the graph now? There we go. Cubic functions, we'll get to that. Probability, yes, we'll get to that. Okay, well, do better in life so you can be the man of my dreams. Lovely. Well, you know, whatever motivates you. Recap on graphs. Yeah, okay, guys, thank you so much. I'm going to have to run now. Thank you for joining. I really hope that you guys have learned something. I will do Euclidean geometry, I promise. Please keep an eye on my TikTok. I'm going to post on there when I'm going to go live. I'll also create a live event, so if you maybe missed the post, you can just go to my profile and you can register for it. And thank you for all the likes and for everything. Thanks, guys. I'll see you again next time. Have a lovely evening.